welcome to the 6th edition. Oh my God, it's 6th, Apoorva. I don't believe
Wow.
this.
Yes.
Edition of the Rundown by ETtech. As you'd know, we moved the show from Friday 9 p.m. to Thursday 9 p.m. because, we didn't want to cut into, the weekend time for a lot of our loyal listeners. So hope this is working better for everyone. While we wait for more people to trickle in, let me introduce myself. I am Samidha Sharma, and I'm the editor of ETtech, a print and digital news platform by the Economic Times. Hey, hi, Vidit.
Hey, Vidit.
I usually talk. Hi. I usually talk, tweet, report, edit all things tech and startups, and I've been doing that for many, many years now. These days, I can also be found here on Clubhouse hosting these absolutely exciting sessions with very, very interesting people. And yes, these chats are more fun and candid than our ET interviews. Joining me is my colleague and co-host, Apoorva Mital. She's a startup reporter, and I've designated her as this audio storytelling
Yes.
proponent.
And I love
What, what a week it has been, right, Apoorva? And it's not even
Yeah.
Friday yet.
Yeah.
We've had what, 6 unicorns?
Yes. It's been crazy.
And please make sure we're not missing out on reporting on any new unicorns being birthed in the next 1 hour
Yeah.
while you and I are here on Clubhouse.
Yes.
So back to the show, everyone. Thanks a lot, everyone, sort of trickling in. It's still 2 minutes to 9. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we've had very interesting people. We've just been very lucky. In the last 5 episodes, we've hosted Nitin Kamath, Zerodha's founder, Policy Bazaar's founder, Yashish Thaya, Dipinder Goyal, an absolutely candid chat there, CZ, the Binance founder. And last week, we had 7 speakers on stage. Right, Apoorva, was it 7 or 6?
It was 7.
7, yes.
Yeah, including
Talking
us.
about
Yes.
the rise of beauty e-commerce. So it's been a absolutely great 5 weeks of doing this. And this week obviously has just been a blur for all of us, in this space, right? It's like we wake up and with it we hear that Tiger has made XYZ, a new unicorn has been added to the list. Sometimes even 2, like today, Share Chat and Gupshop. Very surprising names, some of them. And we would be amiss if we did not get a new unicorn on the show tonight. So with us tonight is Vidit Aatrey, the co-founder and CEO of social commerce platform Meesho, which raised 300 million, led by SoftBank Vision Fund. So it's only natural that we got Sumer Juneja, partner and India head for SoftBank Investment Advisors, on the show. Hello, Vidit. Hello, Sumer. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Both of you are making your Clubhouse debut. There's some sort of an applause which Apoorva does, which is, I'm not good at it.
I'm just going to clap my hands the traditional way.
So super pumped to have both of you here tonight. Hello.
Yeah.
And
Hey
welcome.
guys, thank you so much, Samidha, for hosting this one. I somehow figured out an iPhone to get this done. It's my debut as a speaker, but also debut as a user of the app.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow, we are getting Clubhouse some very influential listeners and users.
Yeah.
So, Mer, your first time as well, right?
First time speaking indeed, and obviously thrilled to be with you and also with Vidit, which is amazing. So I'm glad I'm making it with Vidit. I think at least a lot of people will come in here, not me, but him. So it's good.
So, I mean, we don't hear from you too much. So, thanks, and shout out to Bobby for getting this done. He's a very valued, ex-colleague and a dear friend. So thanks, Bobby, for doing this. And I remembered that one of the first invites I sent for Clubhouse back like whatever 3-4 months ago was to Vidit. So recently when I checked with him, are you there? I was like, listen, I actually sent you one, but you're an Android user. But really appreciate you guys taking out the time tonight. I'm not gonna delay this further. We keep this discussion very free flowing. We'll open it up to audience questions post 9:30, 9:40. But if anyone in the audience has something very pressing and pertinent to say, please raise your hands. Else we'll get to you guys, after 30-40 minutes. I'm going to start with you, Vidit. By the way, do you remember when we first met at the YC Demo Day in July 2016 in Mountain View?
I do, and I think we have so many of these interesting stories from our early days. So I remember we met in summer of 16 there. Then we came back, and at that time, I think you picked up that story which came on the front page of TOI back then.
Oh, yes.
Which was the homemaker commerce doing this much. And I don't think anyone knew about this business before that. And then, something we met, I think, in Bangalore around the same time. So, and all of this is like early 16.
Early 16, yeah. No, I remember that so distinctly because, demo days back then, in India, it wasn't that, not too many companies itself in the YC portfolio. And I remember I actually, dug up a mail by Kashyap. Actually, Kashyap had also, by the way, for people in the audience, had introduced me and Vidit, but I actually ended up meeting him because I had gone to the demo day. I was meeting Sam Altman, and I came off thinking Vidit was one of the very sort of quiet kind of founders, and very reticent. I came off thinking, and just this morning, how things have changed. I was telling him that I'm seeing far more of you these days. So how are you taking to this new unicorn tag and so much attention around Meesho with it? I mean, I actually thought very differently of you in the first few years of knowing you.
No, I think I have started to kind of become much more vocal over the last 1 year, even on Twitter and otherwise. And I think what I've seen is in the early days, we had the same issues where we had no one to kind of share some of our things with, learn from people in India. And a lot of early stage founders, especially in 2020, where they were facing all these unprecedented issues during the pandemic, came to me and said, hey, like, there's no one in India who's sharing about what to do, etc. So I started to become much more vocal. And I think a lot of people have come back to me and said that a lot more founders should do it. But yeah, I think this is fairly recent. We have not been so out there as a company. We've been much more like heads down, focused on execution, etc. And now this whole unicorn tag is like I think it's just a reason for celebration within the team. Like everyone enjoys it. To the team, it's a sign of validation. To the team, it's a sign of a larger responsibility being put on our shoulders and the belief that we can pull off something large. So I think it's all exciting and inspiring for everyone, and we are enjoying that.
So it's not always been easy for you guys to raise funding, and it is a milestone in a way, right? And I remember early days when I think you and I used to chat far more. You've also highlighted how it was tough to raise a few rounds. If I'm not wrong and I'm getting the year right, 17, 18 was one of them. And not too many VCs were lining up for social commerce back then, right? There was always this discussion, what is it that Facebook or Amazon cannot do, which players like you were doing. And also I was surprised when you brought in Facebook so early on in your life cycle. Tell me, how has it been as far as fundraising and generally the kind of journey you've had from back then and what you're seeing right now?
Yeah, sure. So I think from the early days, whatever we were trying to pull off was very contrarian to people. I still remember when we started in 2016 and we started to reach out to investors and say, hey, we have built this which enables people to sell on WhatsApp and Facebook. Like a lot of people used to laugh, found it crazy. Like, what are you even saying? I can't even imagine it. And I think it took some time for people to realize this. So if you do something unique, and I think back in 16, 17, there were not a lot of Indian companies that were trying to do something unique. A lot of models were inspired by something in the West or the East, which used to be very common. So when you are trying to do something unique, you have to spend a lot more time in making people really understand the vision and the problem that you're solving, right? So for the first 2 years, yeah, I think they were quite tough in selling that story. And I think we've been very fortunate to get some very strong believers in the company, be it our Angel, YCC, like series, even after that. I think we've always had very strong believers in the company. Even now, like we have reached wherever we are, we still have like a very small board, and all people who are very, very strong believers in what we are trying to do and very, very supportive. And I think that being that supportive has helped us do a lot of bold bets, but things that we really believe are the right things to do to achieve our vision, which is to enable 100 million small businesses to succeed online. So I would say, like broadly, it's like if you look back, it's natural, right? If you're trying to do something very unique, very contrarian, it would take time for you to explain the story and make people really believe in it. I think over time, as people saw our execution, saw how we were growing. I still remember we did our Series A, Series B, Series C within a matter of 12 months, all of them put together.
Right.
And that happened because of the rapid pace at which we're growing. So in the beginning, people said, this sounds funny. I can't imagine how this will work. Then they started to look at numbers and say, okay, this looks serious. And then they started to see how we were growing so fast. And so I think that's how it has evolved over time. And I still feel very fortunate that I think we always had very few but very strong believers as part of the company, be it our shareholders, also the team, right? So we have always been a very strong, close unit, and it's been one of the big reasons of where we are today.
So, I'm going to come back to some of the points you made. I want to get Sumer in. I want to ask you why Meesho and why at this valuation, Sumer? Most people think it's expensive. Maybe not Tiger. On a more serious note, SoftBank Vision Fund has been taking smaller and more selective bets, right? Post 2018, the kind of companies that you've backed have, I mean, most of them are actually IPO bound. Whether you look at Delivery, Policy Bazaar, Lenskart, not the cash guzzling kind, which was very vintage SoftBank, back in 14, 15. So this is very reminiscent of those times. Sumer, I mean, why would you shed some light on, why Meesho and at this valuation?
Yeah, sure. So why Meesho? I mean, I can get into, right? I think what Vidit said. Look, I met Vidit first in January 2019. I think he was closing his Facebook round then. After that, obviously, they got Naspers, and I've been following him since then. I think we must have met between Bangalore and Bombay at least 7 to 10 times with his team and our team. In addition, obviously, we know the board members really well, Saif, Naspers, Sequoia. So there's a lot of comfort there we got from them, also the way they think about the business. I think for us, there were, 3-4 things which played out for Meesho, and, we did see the execution and we tracked it. So the comfort kept growing. One was, if you look at it, there are 600 million people online today, or 600 odd million people who use WhatsApp, but there are only about 100 million active e-commerce shoppers, right? And so what are the other 500 million doing? People spend 3 hours a day on the internet, and 2 hours of that is messaging, social, video, music, etc. And so that was one thesis. And how do you get that social connection to transact online? The second angle was, you have nearly 60 million SMEs and micro SMEs. We have a long tail of supply. And a lot of people are not coming online is because they have issues with the quality of the product or the trust. And that's what the women entrepreneurs were doing, which was giving them a personalized feed and the trust. And it all sounded kind of logical in theory, but I think what Meesho and Vidit and the team have done is created this seamless platform which enables people to come on without any working capital, with and that fear of getting online either as a woman entrepreneur or as a long tail unorganized supply or as a consumer kind of disappeared. And I think the way they married the social element of India, the engagement element in India, and really bring the offline experience of buying long tail supply online was phenomenal, right? And then if you look at the numbers, whether it be the MAU, the engagement, the GMV, the unit economics, they were all very powerful. And then if you look at the team, and we spent time with obviously Vidit and the team, I think this was one of the few businesses we saw that yes, commerce in India will be big, but who is really solving a unique problem for India, which is there's no, like you said, there's no playbook abroad. And I think if you get that right, the outcome can be really, really be hard because it's not a cut, copy, paste model somewhere else where other people can come and just start it overnight. When it comes to the burn and the valuation, I think Vidit will strongly disagree, and so do I. I think he's and Vidit can give out the number. I don't want to give it, but his lifetime burn to create this kind of GMV is absolutely minimal. If you look at, I think he talks about the metrics of employees per GMV as well as the amount of money is taken to reach here. I think it's safe to say that it's been very, very capital efficient. And even when the company has decided to step on the pedal, they've been very cautious on not breaking certain contribution margin targets. And that gave us a lot of comfort that we have so much control over the unit economics that this doesn't necessarily have to be, and I don't think it will be, a cash guzzling machine. In terms of valuation, look, I think that's I think a view which every investor has, and obviously a lot of the existing investors also followed. I think if you look at GMV multiples globally, for the growth which Meesho has, the uniqueness which Meesho has, what they've created in an asset-light model, that multiple to us is not unfair to Meesho. I think it's absolutely right. And when we see the growth in what he's built, I think we are very comfortable that this is going to be a super outcome for us. And like I think Vidit said, right? I think unicorn or the valuation we've come in at, I think it's a milestone. I think the depth of the market and the vision of the entrepreneur is so large and so far so good on the execution that we are comfortable that this is the right valuation.
So, Vidit, you want to talk a little about how sort of things have changed for Meesho from the time that you started to what the company is now. And I'm just sort of, quoting what you said in the announcement when the SoftBank round was announced, that Meesho aims to sort of simplify e-commerce for all small businesses in India. And you said, you have a new vision for the company. And I mean, we never really had a chat about this, but when we wrote the first time about this round, and at that point, obviously, it wasn't official. I did mention, I remember writing that, you wanted to now compete with the likes of Amazon and Walmart back Flipkart, and sort of become a more e-commerce player than a reselling platform. Is that your plan? And if so, how do you plan to compete with these giants, which have like a humongous war chest and have been at it for the past decade?
Yeah, I think these are two questions. So I'll start with the second one and then spend a lot more time on the first one, which is what exactly do we want to do with the new vision? But starting with the second one, if you ask me, I don't think we ever think about competing with a specific company out there. I still remember when we were trying to raise our first round, and we took a long time to do that. A lot of a big reluctance in everyone's mind was, hey, you will try to fight with the big guys. Like, these guys have so much capital, this will happen, that will happen. And we said, hey, at the end of the day, the target.
Which were the big guys that they were talking about?
Like all of the larger e-commerce marketplaces you talk about, and some of them have changed. I won't take names here. I don't think names matter, but I think the broader point is, people keep coming back to them, but if you ask us, it just doesn't matter, right? So you've just focused on, this is the problem we are trying to go after. And I try to explain it this way, right? So I'll give you one simple perspective to think about this. India's e-commerce now is about 15 years old. If you look at the number of small businesses who are selling their products online is less than 1 million, even after 15 years old. Like after 15-year e-com like timeline, and you compare it with even smaller geographies, like we spent some time in Indonesia, and we see in just like 6-7 years of e-commerce, there are about 10 million plus small businesses who sell online. And you see some similar things happen even in a lot of other emerging markets. And India, even for emerging markets, India's contribution of small businesses to the GDP offline is very high. It's about 90%. But when you look online, the same split doesn't exist. It's a big dichotomy. And the big reason that exists today is that no one ever solved problems for these small businesses of what kind of barriers do they have in terms of everything, be it policies, be it product, be it the kind of tool that they need to come online and get the right intelligence to succeed, everything, right? Like even getting the customer that they like to sell to.
But why do you say that, Vidit? I mean, Amazon's entire machinery is built to cater to small businesses. I mean, that's what they've been doing for ever since they stepped into India.
And that's why I'm giving you the facts. India has 60 million businesses, small businesses. All of these guys combined have less than 1 million people who sell on their platforms. I'm giving you facts. I don't know what people are trying to do, but like definitely the outcome is not happening, right? Like we don't have tens of millions of small businesses selling online. So whatever has been doing for the last 15 years to somehow to me is not working. And if that was working, by the way, we should not exist. The reason we exist is because no one ever solved that white space. Like we came and we said, this is so apparent and no one just solves problem for small businesses. And we said, we will get them online. Like we will help them with the right onboarding in an experience they find very intuitive with, getting the customer that really buy from them offline. We will get them online. I'm saying the thing we solve for them is by understanding these small businesses. But what you're saying, even if everyone has been trying to do it, just hasn't happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go on.
Yes, I'm saying just closing this point. I think for us, it's not about who we are competing with. Like what inspires us every single day at Meesho, and it just not means, I think it's the entire team, is we are very, very focused on our user. And we've always said, like we always started our entire business by saying, hey, this is 2015, this is 6 years ago, 2015. E-commerce has been there for a long time. Most small businesses are still selling offline. There's structurally something wrong. And then we started to go out and see different kinds of small businesses. And we said, what can we do to bring them online? And after multiple experiments, we found that one of the big formats of small businesses that exist in the offline world in India and is a big contributor to the distribution sales of like long tail and like unbranded fashion and lifestyle is women running fashion boutiques. There are millions of like fashion boutiques run by women at home across the country. And we just figured out one of the big problems that they have, which is needing capital on day one to start a business. And we said, can we eliminate that need and bring that online? And so far we've been very successful. Now we want to kind of take the same thesis and apply to other kinds of small businesses and bring them online. But that's how we think about it. We want to go and bring the real small businesses in India and really make them successful. And that's where our vision comes in. We say we want to bring 100 million small businesses online, make them successful. I don't think people have done even 1% of the job so far.
Okay. So, Sumer, Meesho, from what I understand, is obviously not only a reselling platform anymore. And is that why you think that valuation and the kind of capital that you need to fight, bigger e-commerce players and that's the justification of this? Because from what I understand, Meesho will and is going to compete with your traditional online retail, whether it is Amazon, Flipkart, or other horizontal players.
Yeah, so Samit, I think I agree with Vidit, right? I think the way we look at it is, what is the addressable market? The organized retail today in India is about 100 billion. The unorganized retail is about 750 billion, right? And if we take, I don't know, ballpark, say Amazon, Flipkart, maybe doing about $15-20 billion of GMV each, that's mainly in the organized retail where they are playing, right? So that's about 30-40 billion. But in the unorganized retail, which is the long tail where Meesho is primarily playing, and both on the consumer side, we're bringing these people who are new to commerce to get them to interact, as well as the supply. That penetration is less than 1%. So I think there is enough room because there's so much of this is going to come online. I think there's enough room for everyone to have their own product market fit. And so therefore, when we think of Meesho, it's not necessarily that's going to compete with X and Y. There is a massive TAM there. We have to digitize them. We have to digitize the SMEs. We have to bring the 400 million people who only use WhatsApp and don't transact. And Meesho needs that quality, trust, hand-holding, a little bit of that service element which you get offline. And we think Meesho is best placed to do that. And I'd like to see it in the execution. When it comes to how efficient it will be, I think where we get comfort is it is an extremely asset-light model, right? It's a platform. We don't have the warehouses. We don't carry inventory. We don't have the logistics arm. But we have that platform where we bind it all together to give an experience like the other e-commerce players without carrying all the asset heavy part of it. And therefore, it has been super capital efficient, and which is why we think it will continue to be capital efficient.
So, taking from that point, Vidit, what Sumer just mentioned, about long tail. Now, I mean, you also gave a number, in your announcement that 13 million entrepreneurs are already on board, on Meesho's platform, and you have a target, which you earlier also mentioned, of 100 million. But there are a lot of question marks on the model. And I want you to clarify. You operate in categories like fashion. I mean, these are very low average selling price items with, supposedly high burn and low NPS. Can you talk us through if this model is sustainable? Because unlike in China, which has a huge sort of manufacturing ecosystem, which resellers sort of rely on, India doesn't have one. And there are people who make comparisons to what you're trying to do has been done, and people have not succeeded, whether it's Craftsvilla, Shop Clues, and even Snapdeal, to some extent. These are, again, low ASP, high burn businesses which weren't sustainable. So how are you going to pull off on the long tail part of it? Is it only going to be like what Sumer mentioned, since you're sort of asset light, is that the only differentiator here? Because there have been players who've tried to capture that market, which Amazon and Flipkart have sort of steered clear of.
Yeah, so I think it's a good question. And again, I'll split into two. And the first one is just around economics. You're talking about whether this is sustainable. And I think Sumer also talked about this a couple of times. I think one of the big things we've always been very, very disciplined about as a business is our capital efficiency, right? So we always made sure that we run our business with very sound economics. So I can give you one stat. So we've been at least 17 to 18 times more capital efficient than all other e-commerce players to kind of get to similar GMV numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have spent like 1/15th, 1/16th, 1/17th that amount. And we have done that because of the way we have designed our business model, right? And which obviously gives it leverage. That's why we have spent like very, very less money to kind of get to the kind of scale we want. Even right now, when we were raising around, at this point in time, we still have almost all of the money that we raised in our last round from Naspers and Facebook, which is almost 2 years ago. And again, we were able to do this because we ran our business so far with very, very high discipline around that. So that is just around economics. And I think that talks about sustainability by itself, right? Like tomorrow, we want to get to profitability. We always have a plan of how to kind of switch that on. Our focus as a business today is on growth because we're still very, very small as compared to where we want to eventually be. So we want to focus there. But I think just purely in terms of sustainability, in terms of health of the business, I would say we would be the top tech businesses just because of our approach of building out the business so far, right? So that is one. Now, second, which is more long tail, China has manufacturing, India doesn't have manufacturing. Like, I don't know like why all of these arguments matter. I don't know what other people did even before. I can tell you what we are doing because that's what we know. We have taken the approach of solving this by being very, very small business centric rather than going out and splurging money on consumers and doing all the hoopla that used to conventionally happen in e-commerce. We have said we will approach this business by solving really tough and hard problems for these small businesses. And do it because no one else has done it before. And being very, very focused on that particular audience, I think we've been able to create a lot of value, and that's why they've come to our platform, they've scaled it up, a lot of consumers come and buy from us. All of that we've taken care from there, and then everything like follows, right? So I can't comment on what some of the other guys did and they did not succeed. I think we've been, for everything that we've done as a business, we've always been very contrarian. We've thought from first principles around once every single problem. We don't look at if someone did not make it happen earlier, we can't. We are always like thinking it from how can we solve the problem of this small business? Because like these guys have to come online. If 90% of all commerce in the offline world, in the unstructured long tail, you can't have a large e-commerce market without small businesses being a large part of it. It just doesn't make sense to me, right? So someone has to solve that problem. And we said that we want to do it.
Right. Apoorva, you had a follow-up question to this.
Yeah, so with it, I was actually, interested in understanding a little bit about how you're going about to improve reseller stickiness or loyalty to the platform, because there are a bunch of social commerce players that have come up in India now. And in my conversation with some of them, this seemed to be like one of the point that they were stressing on, that like they're launching a lot of programs to get more resellers to stick to their brand. So has that been a challenge? And as more and more players come into this space, and what are you doing to solve for that?
Yeah, again, I don't know which players are you referring, but I can again give you one stat, right, which is again very fascinating. So when we started up 4 years ago, and we had multiple Me Too players come into the sector, which is quite common, happens anywhere when you're trying to do something which potentially has a large value to be created. And every year over the last 3 years, we've just made the distance between us and the second or the third player much, much larger. So if you ask me, about 2 years ago, we would have about 70% market share. Now, in 2 years forward, our market share is definitely 90% plus, right? Like all other players combined together would be less than 10% of what we do. And we've done that again without, as I said, without going out and just giving up like free subsidies to people and burning crazy amount of money. We've done it with very high discipline around how do we run this business. So I'm saying we have done it. I don't think that remains the question at all, right? Like the way we have designed our business, as the business becomes very clear that who will win the space. So I think some of these facts prove about how, as a business, over time, as we scale, we'll just be able to provide a much superior experience to our users. And that's why all of them come to us instead of going elsewhere. All of that is reflected in the numbers that I talked about.
But with it, I mean, I've picked up, from multiple people that, your burn is pretty high. It's about 5 to 6 million. Is that right? And if so, where is this money being pumped into?
I don't think I will share specific numbers, but I can tell you.
You can do that here with it.
No. We don't share. And
we encourage candidness on this show.
No, we are being candid. But I'm sure that we are discussing a lot of this for the first time out there. So I think we are being candid.
So, what do you say to these numbers of high burn, and what is it? Where is it being deployed?
I think, as I already talked about, right? I don't talk about specific numbers, but as I said, and again, Sumer talked about it as well, we've been very capital efficient for the kind of scale we have gotten to. So even if you look at for every penny spent, the kind of scale we have generated our business is much, much higher to any players compared to before that. So I can tell you that rest assured, I think we are very, very sorted on that front. And that's why everyone is so bullish in our journey to kind of keep supporting us and help us achieve our vision.
Right. So I want to get in Sumer here, stepping aside from Meesho for a bit. I want to talk a little about, the wider tech universe. And we started the show by listing out the number of unicorns and like, we know we are still on Thursday. There's another day to go. I want you to talk a little about how this cycle sort of compares to the previous cycle, because and we were actively reporting back then how sort of SoftBank was making very expensive bets back then. This cycle it's actually been led by Tiger and Falcon and some of these other investors. What do you make of how crazy and heated the deal activity has been in the past 6 months, and more so this year in 2021?
So first, Samidha, you're saying SoftBank is making good bets now? Because you first told
I'm
me
not saying
Meesho is expensive. Now you're saying we're very disciplined. So I'll take that as a compliment.
No. 1 second. I said no. I said in the previous cycle, SoftBank was the lead, investor, which was doing expensive deals. I also said that since 2018, you've been far more cautious in terms of the kind of companies that you've invested in. But obviously, I mean, like I said in the beginning, Meesho seems a little different, but obviously there are theories and sort of Vidit has,
Sure.
given out numbers, etc. But what do you make of it beyond Meesho? I mean, like I said, overall wider, tech ecosystem right now and the deal activity.
Yeah. So I think some of that, let's say 2-3 things, right? There's one which is specific to India. Then there's obviously the global liquidity, and then what are the trends we're seeing abroad, which are the tailwinds for technology, and obviously COVID has helped those tailwinds, right? I think in India it's very well known, right? You have the cheapest data in the world, right? I think now I was reading a BCG report the other day. I think it was that we were probably the 155th user of data in the world, and now we're number one with about 11 GB per month per capita. And that's been growing. The 6-year CAGR of that is something like 80%. So that's the amount of people which are using data and coming online. And so what happens with that? What happens with that is like being online or having a business which has a digital story to it is no longer an option, it's a must, right? So when you spoke to companies in India 3 to 4 years ago, maybe even 7, 8 years ago, they said, oh, if I need a good distribution, there are 13 million Kirana stores in India and I should be in all those Kirana stores, and that's how I'm going to get my distribution. Today, if you do not have a digital edge and you do not have a consumer-friendly app, you are not going to get to the 600 million people. So the distribution is all online, and therefore, if you are not an omni-channel or a digital-first company, I think you're going to be left behind in that trend. Obviously, in addition to that, super young population, a lot of good support from the government with UPI payments, etc. Really good logistics companies coming up. Obviously, we are in delivery. So the ecosystem is there where, this tailwind is here to stay for the next 20, 30 years, right? So that's the long-term vision. In addition to that, I think what's happened over the last 10 years is that there's been an immense amount of maturity in the leadership and the talent density in the country. I think if you asked any VCs or investors, 7, 8 years ago, and if you wanted a VP product, a VP engineering, if you wanted good talent density, you always looked like, okay, who from the Valley who's got an Indian origin is happy to come back? I think today, because they are returning entrepreneurs, because they've been, a large amount of tech, large companies created, there is a lot of talent density. And that is obviously, if you don't have that human capital, you're not going to build a large scale company. And so when you put all that together, and I'll just give you one last stat, at least when, we think about it. The Indian kind of market cap today is about $2 trillion. Let's say with GDP, it grows to about $5 trillion. I think today, other than, InfoEdge and IndiaMart, there's no listed stock today in India, right? And let's say even of that 5 trillion, even 20 odd percent is tech first market cap. And I think in the US today, it's like 35, 40%. We're talking about $1 trillion+ of listed market cap in India. when we reach a 5 trillion economy. So I think that's where the excitement is, right? And then you add to that, obviously, there's a lot of liquidity in the world. You add to that we are going through this revolution across the world, whether it be in SaaS, whether it be in food delivery, whether it be in e-commerce, and you see that globally. You see all the tech stocks globally also. And so you add to that, then obviously, there is going to be an impact on valuation. Now, I think it's everyone has a view on valuation, right? I think everyone picks and chooses. We have our portfolio, other people will have their portfolio. But I think it's that 10-year vision which people are playing for. But I think two things I think have become more important. One is, no matter how high the valuation is, I think investors are asking a lot more questions on how will the unit economics play out? What is the engagement? What is the repeat? And is this a nice to have or a must have application which is there in the market? I think those the companies or that phase of growth at any cost, and I'll just sort out the unit economics later. I think that's mellowed down. So maybe the valuations are higher, but I think the questions and the approach is very different. So I think that gives me confidence that yes, if you overpaid, your exit might be delayed by 2 to 3 years. But I think materially, if the company executes well and the product market fit is there, I think there'll be pretty good outcomes of this vintage.
What about some of the older companies in your portfolio, Sumer, Paytm, Oyo, Ola? It hasn't been that easy for some of these companies, especially over the past year or so.
No, I think look,
what do you make?
COVID. Yeah, I think COVID is impact obviously hospitality, and it's not a Oyo or a Ola thing, right? Globally, when people are not going to work, when people are not going to the airport, that industry itself kind of obviously because of COVID had a tough time. But I think both those companies have done phenomenally well in making sure that they are getting closer to EBITDA positive or being EBITDA positive. And really being very conscious of the burn and making sure that they've sustained through this. And I think both of them have come out very strongly. And I think Paytm, look, man, they are I think by far a very strong fintech player. Fintech is always going to be a big outcome. We've seen it globally. It's a big. If you look at even the market cap of the Nifty, right, financial services is the biggest weightage, so that should translate to fintech, and it's a big one of the core pillars. For e-commerce, so they are well placed. Companies might go, sectors might have cycles, some in their control, some not. But I think all three are done extremely well.
Okay, so now on that note, we will dive into the most fun part of the show. Apoorva, please list out the rules for rapid fire and let's jump in.
Yeah, so guys, no rules. Basically, I'll just throw a volley of questions at you, try to answer as quickly as possible, and imagine, like I always say, high stake music playing in the background. So maybe you can go first, and then with it you can go, or we can do it alternatively.
So one question to both, and ideally 1 or 2 words, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
cool. So first question, and either of you can go first. Which was the most surprising unicorn in the past week?
Sumer?
Trying to think. That's a tough one, man. You're putting me on the spot. I think
surprising. It doesn't have any negative connotations. By
okay, I think probably Gupshup.
Yeah. Okay. Vidit?
Yeah, I would say the same. Like same Gupshup. I don't think anyone knew that they will raise.
Yeah, they've not raised any money for 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Apparently.
Okay, next questions. If you had to pick one, profit or growth, Vidit, do you want to go first?
Say the question again.
If you had to pick one, profit or growth.
I think it's a very contextual question at different stages, but I would say first growth and then profit.
What about you, Sumer?
No, growth, man. We are tip of the iceberg.
How many more unicorns to go before we end April?
I think about 5.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. Okay.
Thanks, but we will definitely have busy days if Sumer's prediction is to be right.
Yeah. Vidit, what do you think?
Yeah, again, like Sumer would know, right? Sumer obviously knows all the things that are happening under the hood. So I'll pick a number which is close to him. I'll add one to it, maybe 6.
Okay. Wow. So your pick among the IPO candidates in India, and Sumer, you can skip SoftBank portfolio firms, which are many, I know. But if you had to pick one IPO candidate in India,
Yeah, I think Nika's on track, right?
yeah.
That's what I hear.
Hmm.
With it?
The soonest one, with it, which one do you think?
It's a tough question because I practically don't know. I keep hearing that Zomato will do soon, so maybe then. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, okay, last question. Describe in one adjective Tiger Global.
Unicorn.
uh, Sumer?
Alive and kicking.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great. I think time for audience questions now. Samidha?
Yeah, I don't think we can pronounce one winner between the two. So we'll get into questions. We had we're opening this up, and there were some people who had raised their hands while we were in the chat, so I kind of dismissed. But they can also come back, and all questions are welcome if we have time. So we have Harsh Malik. Please just introduce yourself and keep it to one short question and no pictures, please.
Hi everyone, thank you for hosting this room. So I'm 23 years old, I'm a trader, and I'm very active in the startup news and financial news and markets.
What's your
I
question,
just have a
Harsh?
question.
Yeah.
I just have a question for Sumer, and it is that after making an investment, what parameters or when do you decide that you gotta kill it off or shoot it behind the barn?
Sorry, say that again. When do I get to know?
When do you decide that it's time to cut it off or put it behind the barn and shoot it?
No, that's not. So look, I think the way we are, look, we have a thesis which has to play out, and I think where at least SoftBank plays is late stage growth, right? So there is a lot of data we have, and I think the probability of it might not be as big an outcome, or might be a bigger outcome than we thought. But I don't rarely will be in a position where it's going to be that we have to put it to bed. So I think for us, I would say it's close to never, man. We stick at it. We give whatever help, additional capital, and if it's kind of not done as well it is, we try and find a home for it. But I think at our stage, rarely, very very rarely will you find a situation where we'll have to kind of say, okay, we've given up totally.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have two Rohans. I'm going to start with Rohan Malhotra. Rohan, you want to shoot your question?
Absolutely. Shoot is going to shoot. Thank you very much for hosting this. This is fantastic. Vidit, seeing as it's hard to get a hold of you on the phone these days, but what has been the most precarious and difficult time of your growth story in Meesho? And for context, I run a small seed fund, Good Capital, and we were very fortunate to be early investors in Meesho's first round. So I have Vidit to thank for lots and lots of good things.
Hey,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Rohan. Can you repeat the question?
Sorry, I was asking, what's been the most difficult and precarious part of the Meesho journey, right? All the way from 2016 up until now. I remember a few shaky years in the first couple of years and lots of good stories to go with it. I think that'll be fun to hear.
Yeah, I think I would say generally two phases which have been very interesting and obviously challenging, and that's what make it fun. So I think the first 2 years of the company were exactly that. And even last year, as soon as the whole lockdown thing happened, I think the first 6 months were quite uncertain. I think they were for everyone. So let me pick some stories from our early days, right, which is 15 to 17. I think we started with focusing on small businesses, we said, how will we discover this problem? So I still remember we are based out of Kormangala in Bangalore. So we used to go to all these mom and pop shops, and we used to sit next to these shop owners and say, hey, we'll just observe you. You just keep selling products to whoever comes in, and we'll observe you because we want to understand what kind of problems do you face, right? And we used to spend a lot of time there. Um, Sometimes the wives of these shop owners will come and feed us with lunch. We'll play with their kids. All of that used to happen. People used to tell us their stories of what's going bad in the business. I think that's that was the time when we were kind of struggling a lot, obviously, because we were trying to figure out what to do. But the amount of inspiration that we got around what are the daily challenges some of these people had, what are the problems that no one knows about. Even when we used to observe people selling to customers on WhatsApp, and this is 2015, I don't think anyone ever thought that people will do it. That time is quite memorable because a lot of insights that we built in our product, which eventually scaled up very fast, come from being on the ground with some of these shop owners. And this is that first 2 years when we were trying and experimenting with a lot of things. And thanks for being part of that journey. You have seen it very, very closely. I think starting 2016, and we pivoted again even after that. So yeah, fun time. I think all of us we've become a very strong culture as a company from all the things that we did at that point in time, right? So a lot of our cultural values, like we have also realized that almost every significant product that we have built in the company has come by being very, very close to our users. And that is why I'm still paranoid. And I have about 150 users on my WhatsApp, and I do their support even today, even a single product is delayed. So it just culturally wove a lot of these characteristics into us. But all of these times, lots of stories, very memorable. And thanks for bringing that out.
No, not at all. Props to you guys. You built a category-defining business, and I remember the days when we were doing our diligence, and you and Sanjeev used to go around on scooters delivering products. So we've come a long way since then. Congratulations on your success, buddy. Thank you very much, Samidha.
Thanks, Rohan. Anu, you had a question?
Yes, Samidha, thank you so much. This has been a very interesting and enlightening discussion so far. I have a quick question for Sumer and Vidit. I wanted to understand that as a part of your expansion plan for Meesho, I'm curious to know whether you're looking at any thoughts on making your Meesho distributors also sell financial products on the platform, on the Meesho platform.
So I think we've done a lot of experiments, and one of the biggest findings we've had is most of our entrepreneurs today are women, like almost 90% of them. And women are generally not because they sell to their peers, which are again mostly women. Women are generally not the decision maker in a lot of financial decisions. So I think there's a lot of training that's required. So maybe we can do it at some point in time, but it's not a very obvious thing to build. But we did some experiments around this about a couple of years ago. And we realized it just requires a lot of training ramp up for all of our users to even understand and then sell it out to people.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I think I'll go next. First of all, thanks for having me, Samidha and Apoorva. And congratulations to Vidit and Sumer for that Unicorn Week. My question was directed towards Vidit. A little background about me. I'm a fellow with Alter Global. It's a Silicon Valley-based VC. And I work with this company called Cargo with a K. It's based out of Indonesia. It's a logistic tech startup based out of Indonesia. So my question revolved around the expansion in SEA market for Meesho. And I believe there were talks that you had made an investment in the SEA market, but somehow you kind of rolled back. So what was the problem in the expansion process? And if this is not true, why not expand to the SEA market?
I think we eventually realized that it's very hard to focus on multiple geographies. And if you even go to Indonesia, I think the market is very big. There are lots of large players in e-commerce. So I don't think it's a thing that you can do with partial focus. So I think became a question of focus. Can we do multiple things at once? And we said right now, India itself is a very deep and large market for us to focus on. So why not just put all the force behind making this happen in India, and maybe at the right time in the future we evaluate this decision and go back. So I think it was quite simple, and this is how we're thinking about it.
I have a follow up. Thanks, Rohan. I hope you got your answer. Just wanted to pull in Sumer on this. Of so many years of covering SoftBank, going international was one of the key things that SoftBank sort of stressed upon its portfolio companies, whether it was Oyo or Paytm, bunch of others, right? It does that, but increasingly we've seen over the last few years that what Vidit just said, that companies want to kind of focus on India. It's a large enough market and do not want to get distracted by getting into newer and international markets. What is your thought on this? Because initially when a lot of the investments from SoftBank happened, it was one of the key things that was stressed upon as being very important for portfolio companies to go outside.
Yeah, no. So I think it's case by case, right? Samidha, I think, look, even if you look at Ola, right? Ola went abroad, after really solidifying the position in India, right? They went to the UK and Australia and New Zealand quite a time later. I think for us, I don't disagree. I think it's focus. I don't think there's a one size kind of fits all. It's not. We have to work with the entrepreneur and the rest of the board and all the other investors to figure out what is right. I think Meesho specifically, obviously, they're solving an India-specific problem. Could also be extended to an emerging market problem. But like I said, if you look at 750 billion, which is unorganized, and only 1% of that is online, why look elsewhere, right?
Right.
Similarly with some of our other companies. But if you look at some of the other companies where we think we can go abroad, so Lenskart does have stores in Singapore. FirstCry has got some international operations. So I think it's case by case, and where we think we should focus our resources, and how comfortable we feel that India is humming along and we should expand further. So I don't think there's a single playbook. I think it will depend. I think like Vidit said, for Meesho, there's such a large market here that, and like you said, right, there will be other people who we might kind of interact with, other e-commerce players. We'll overlap with them. So we've got enough to do here, and we make sure we win this market.
Right. Rohit, you had a question?
Yeah. So thanks, Samidha and Apoorva, for hosting this. So I have a question for Sumer and Vidit. So basically, if we are talking about social commerce, we should ideally talk about Pinduoduo. So just wanted to know what kind of similarities you see between Meesho and Pinduoduo from a business revenue model, business how they operate as an entity, and from a user level also, Indian users versus Chinese users.
Yeah, I think there are two. You can again split that business into two things. So there's one common overlap and one very different, right? So one is pure go-to-market and solving the need. I think, as Sumit talked about, one of the big things that we've been able to do with our go-to-market, which is leveraging people to tap into WhatsApp communities, we've been able to reach out to a lot of people who are never transacting online, right? And I think Pinduoduo also did the same thing on WeChat. A lot of people who are active on WeChat but not on the other e-commerce platforms in China came there. So I think that's definitely one big similarity. But the difference happens around the kind of categories they're focused on, and also depends on the ecosystem that exists there. So a lot of focus of Pinduoduo started with fruits, vegetables, consumables. Some of those categories in India with our scale of the ecosystem are at least not viable as of today. Where our category focus has been very different. So I would say that's one big difference. But the first one is exactly the same. I think everyone approached it saying all of these social platforms tend to have much larger user base than some of this. Can you tap into them with a very unique way? And I think both of us approached that problem.
Yeah, so I think for us, a few things, right? One is even in China, when you have such large e-commerce players, if you come up with a unique solution for a section or an area of the country which needs to get online, large companies can be created, right? I think that's one big learning from Pinduoduo. The second is that you do coexist with other e-commerce players, right? It's not necessarily you are competing head on. And on lower AOV versus, maybe the traditional e-commerce players, there is still, because of the repeat, because of the efficiency of the model, there is a lot of kind of revenue and cash flow to be made. So Samidha, just Pinduoduo makes like about $6-7 billion of free cash flow, right? So the unit economics are good. Which hopefully
but that's China, Sumer. A lot of things happen there which don't happen in
no,
India.
but Meesho will do that. So I'm saying, so that's where the similarity is, and we've seen that across other emerging markets in Southeast Asian countries as well, right?
So, Vidit, just to follow up to the question which Rohit asked, which are the categories that now you would sort of look to enter and sort of double down on, in this sort of new vision for Meesho?
Yeah, with this, we want to be category agnostic. Any category that exists out there, we want to do it. But as I said, there's some bit around like ecosystem maturity as well. You need to have very low cost of logistics infrastructure for some categories to make sense.
So name a few. Which are the ones which you think
for example, these consumables. If you look at like in Pinduoduo, the biggest category that sells is toilet paper, worth 25 rupees. You can't sell that online today in India and make money, right?
Sure.
So I'm saying a lot of that is there. I think that will evolve over time as the overall scale of e-commerce keeps going up. Every year, cost of the logistics will keep going down with more and more density. So some of that will happen automatically. But our focus is that we wanna be category agnostic. Any category you wanna enable them, and we'll keep solving these problems. Some of them will be solved by time, and a lot of this, by the way, we can solve it today. I don't think it's a 10-year journey to get there. It can be much, much sooner.
Great. So one last question from the audience. Shri is with us, and then we'll sort of wrap it up after that.
Thanks for that, Samidha. Vidit and Sumit, firstly, congratulations. So, Vidit, I have a question for you. Now that we are speaking about what categories you might be focusing on, right? So, wanted to get your views in terms of the competition, especially in terms of the vertical players who are getting both investor and also the consumer interest. I mean, the likes of Stage 3 when it comes to fashion, City Mall when it comes to grocery, OTP, especially with respect to F&B, and I think Hilofy is also doing something into the women vertical. So when you speak about being about category agnostic, how do you see competition in each of the specific verticals? And are there any specific verticals which you think would give you high frequency and probably would help you in long run?
Yeah, I think I have the same answer that I had for competition in general. I don't think we've ever cared about it. Like a lot of competition has come and gone over the last few years. So I don't think we are focused on competition to see can we fight a vertical player or horizontal player. I think we just ourselves solving these problems one by one, looking at what specific needs different types of categories, geographies have, and we'll solve them. So I don't think there's any category specific approach. But broadly to your last question, which is about frequency, I think frequency will come by grocery. And I don't know if you saw, even with this announcement, we talked about one of our new businesses, which is called Farmiso, and it's just focused only on grocery. And the reason it is exciting to us is a lot of people in India, especially in the lower income segment, the only thing they spend money on almost all is grocery, right? And if you want to kind of get to that audience, it's very, very important. And we are taking the same lens and same way of solving problems that we did in Meesho, even there, with a different category base, supply chain is different. But it is definitely very, very exciting to us. And the potential price of enabling so many people to come online and sell grocery is obviously very large. So we are excited about it. And I think that will solve the consumer frequency problem as well. And even get a lot more people who we haven't got so far online to buy from us to even come and transact.
Shri, sorry, I pulled you back into the audience. I hope you got your answer. Just one last question from Ritu. I know there's a bunch of other people lined up. But Ritu, if you can quickly put your question across. You're on mute, Ritu.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Samidha. Many congratulations to Vidit and Sumer for the amazing social commerce model that you all have come up with, which empowers the women. My question is that what kind of regulatory unlocks would you seek from the government to take your growth story forward?
Vidit?
Yeah, I think the overarching ask for us is we just want like everyone, including the government, to make it easier for small businesses to come online. And one big thing that we see is that today with the current regime, if you do not have a GST registration, you can't come online and sell. And most, like 90% plus of small businesses in India don't have a GST registration, right? But they're allowed to sell in the offline world. So if you are doing less than 40 lakhs of revenue per year, you can not have a GST and sell in the offline world. But if you want to go online, even for selling a product worth a single rupee, you need to essentially have a GST registration. So there's a big disparity, which has also been one of the big hurdles for small businesses to come online. So I would say that is a big one. But broadly, like how can we make it easier for small businesses to come online if whatever can be done there can be a big unlock from the policy side?
Thanks, Ritu.
Thanks so much.
Guys, I think we're sort of past our time, and there are a bunch of other questions, but maybe we can take them offline. Thanks to Vidit and Sumer for doing this, guys. This has really been a super fun session, and Vidit, we've actually we've kind of understood your vision for your sort of next phase of for Meesho, and it's been very informative, and we'll obviously keep the conversation going. And Sumer, similarly, thanks a bunch for doing this, man. This is super appreciated. Hope to get you guys back on the show. And I hope you guys will also come in and join us in other sessions. So thanks to both of you for taking out time.
Thank you, Samidha, Apoorva. Super fun.
Thank you so much.
And thanks a lot. Really appreciate it for you guys to invite me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Samidha. Thanks, Apoorva. Good
Thank
fun,
you.
good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And for everyone in the audience, please send all kinds of feedback, bouquets, brickbats. We are reachable on Twitter. I'm at Samidha S. Apoorva, your handle?
APPY2209.
Yeah, and also follow the most wired reporters in tech and startups. Please do so by subscribing to our newsletters: Morning Dispatch, ETtech Daily Top 5, and Unwrapped, our Saturday edition. Stay safe, everyone, and have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.